We're recording this as a YouTube video. Background, and for those of you who don't know me, I owned an engineering firm that developed plans for a 6,000-acre new city in Sarasota, New York, and I reviewed the developments as Commissioner of Public Works and city engineer with a staff of 70. And I'm not a real estate appraiser, so the first part that's going to be talking about appraisals. Remember, I'm not a licensed appraiser. And we got 42 slides in 50 minutes, followed by 5 minutes of discussion. And if you could, since you're all muted, could you put your questions in on the chat? And Kari's going to monitor that for me. But first, the first thing you have to do whenever you get an appraisal is first you have to figure out how many acres you got. The appraiser can't do this. You need a surveyor to do this. And this is the first thing you do before the appraisal. And so what has happened, and you look in the May 9th, how at the surveys they put in, and they put in these surveys, and they total 94.79 acres, say 95 acres. And that includes the streets. Now, the reason that you have to include the streets is that the developer is going to move around. He's going to abandon some streets and build new streets where they're not. And so he really needs control of the whole 95 acres. But if you subtract out the existing road right-of-ways, that's 16 acres out, and you come up with a 78 acres, 78.6 acres. And that's about what has been commonly referred to as on this site. You hear 76, 77, 78 acres. It appears as though the real number is 78.6 acres. Then you look at the Rays-Hines plan, and they have another 12 acres that they're going to take out for the Boca Creek Park and for pocket parks throughout their place, and or moving the roads around. And so you come up with a buildable acres, that is, that you can actually build a building on, would be about 66 and a half acres. And then the stadium and its two garages and a sign are another 16.4 acres. So when you get all done, you've got about 50 acres buildable after you've taken out the stadium, the streets, and the parks. And that's actual buildable land that you can build. That's what would be sold to a builder. And a buildable acre is kind of like a city block inside the sidewalks. Um, and so I've already come down with this net 50 acres. Okay. So now that we got the acreage figured out, now let's figure out what the price per acre ought to be. And the factors that go into land appraisal, of course, are the supply. And except for the historic gas plant, there's a little buildable downtown left without demolition. For example, the old city police station is on a 2-acre parcel, and that's being demolished to turn it back into raw land that can then be built on. That's typical of how a city gets developed after it's built out. Supply and demand determines your price, and the demand comes from your nearby parcels in St. Petersburg, and that seems to have a very high price right now and going up. Your zoning has a big factor in your land appraisal. High density, high rise zoning is very valuable. Your interest rates, holding on to $700 million of raw land at 10%, which is what a developer would have to do. It means the developer is going to be paying the bank $70 million a year just to keep the land, the raw land. He better develop it, or he's going to be in trouble. Accessibility, as you know, it's all surrounded by expressways on three sides, utilities improvements. Here is something very unusual. The developer normally does all the infrastructure. That's the roads, water, sewer. And in this case, the city is agreeing to spend $130 million on improvements. It already has some streets. Not all the streets are going to be torn up. Some of the streets will be used in the new plan, and some will be new and will have to have new streets, water, and sewer. Amenities is a factor in land appraisal. You know, your walking distance to downtown shops, parks, transit, etc. The shape of your and topography of your parcel. And this parcel is a classic city block layout, so there's not strange shapes that are lower the value. Flood zone risk. This site has been shown in the flood zone maps. I've looked at the flood zone maps for this year, and it is outside of the flood zone for category 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 category hurricanes, for the most part. And environmental factors, was a coal to gas plant that's why it's called the historic gas plant area. And so you get a lot of pollution from turning the coal into gas. And they have removed thousands of cubic yards of contaminated fill on this area. But there is still some concern that some of it got paved over. And the city and county has already committed to spending an additional $70 million on top of the $130 million mentioned above on renovation from the brownfields for the gas plant. And that 70 million also goes to streetscaping and sidewalks. So then 2 years ago, the city asked for an appraisal on this thing, and the appraisal came in at the beginning of 2023. So it's really a 2022 appraisal. And what I want to point out is that the appraisal specifies on 76 acres versus the 78.6 acres is based on the most current surveys, as far as I can read them. Down here, it says the city intends to dispose of the property in a single transaction. That is, they're going to sell all the land to a land developer up front. One transaction, he's going to buy the land and take all the risk. And that is not what is being done in this deal. This particular appraisal uses 8 comparable sales. None of them are from St. Petersburg. 2 of them are from Tampa. 8 of them are from faraway places, as you'll see. And down here in the bottom, they say that the land the appraiser is acknowledging that the land in this area may be ranging to $400 a square foot. Well, you got to know the conversion from square foot to acres. And when you multiply that all out, the appraiser is admitting that the land in this area is going for like 17.4 million. Why he then turns around and gives it a value of 1/4 that is a mystery to me. So the developer goes, or the appraiser goes through, and this is right out of the appraisal, right out of the final thing in the appraisal. He values it at $330 million. So you take that $330 million divided by the 76 acres, and it comes out to $4.3 million an acre, as opposed to the what's the number he used, 17.4 million. Okay, but there's no comparable sales from St. Petersburg. And I'm going to run through this fast because this is something I couldn't fit into my column in yesterday's and Sunday's Tampa Bay Times, which contests the appraisal price. But what I wanted to show you is what this appraisal, what the city appraisal did on this. So the number one sale they take is from San Jose, California. And I'm not going to go through all these things. You can read them for yourself. But the comparable issues, the issue with comparing this with the downtown St. Pete, Tropicana Field area, is this is from California, is 7 miles from downtown, and is owned as an amusement park. And so you wonder about, is that really a comparable parcel? And so then number 2 is from Irvine, California, and they look at this, and this is farm fields. And this is farm fields that are hopefully going to be turned into medium density buildings, kind of like warehouse buildings. And is this a comparable? Is this really a comparable to the downtown St. Petersburg Tropicana field? Because it's from California, it's for warehouses, and it's 40 miles from downtown. And the third one is in Santa Clara, California. And the comparable issues are, again, this from California. It's a 9-year-old sale. It was sold in July 2015, and there's been no development to date. This was bought by Apple for Apple Computer for a potential office site, but it's still vacant today. And then this one's over in Cambridge, Mass. And this does look like it's more comparable, but it is in Massachusetts, and it is a sale that was 9 years ago. And then this is from Houston, Texas, and this is a 4.5-year-old sale and 7 miles from downtown. And this number 6 is a former racetrack. It was sold a couple of years ago, so it's it's at least it's somewhat current. But it's 14 miles from downtown and it's surrounded by single-family homes. And is this really comparable to what they're proposing on the Tropicana field? So what I'm doing is I'm taking these 6 out of 5 out of state, 1 in Miami properties, and I'm saying those are 6 of the 8 properties that the appraiser used to develop an appraisal price for the downtown for the St. Petersburg Tropicana field. And I'm saying I'm not a licensed surveyor, but I'm not a licensed appraiser, but that doesn't seem to make sense to me. Now, the other 2 parcels that I'm not going to show you are over in Tampa, one in Uber, and the other one in Tampa. So then the 3 sales that I threw in on Sunday Times Union, or the Sunday Tampa Bay article are located here. This is, of course, the Tropicana Field site. And here are these 3 sites. One's at 12 million an acre over here next to the expressway. One's at $22 million an acre here, and one's at $31 million an acre right here. And they seem a lot more comparable. That's what I would be using as a comparable sale to try to get a price for what this land is selling for today. And then another one is that the city did its own appraisal on the old police station because it sold off the old police station. And this is its sale, and its appraisal, it came in at $29.4 million. And that's after the old police station has been removed. And it's used 5 comparable properties here along Central Avenue, shown as 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and this is the old police station. And so this looks like in the range of 12 to 22 million if you look down through this column. So again, I'm feeling fairly comfortable saying that this land is 14 million an acre, and that's what this number would divide it into the acreage would come out to. So that is my basis for saying that I think the land is in the $14 million an acre, and I think a competent current appraisal done by an independent appraiser will come up with somewhere in that range, which is 4 times the price that the city is using.